Today is Yud Zayin, Rabbi Gaffney Shir in Samech Tes, Ahmed Vav, Tashin Samech Tes. Oh. Yud Zayin Kislev.
Alright, so we saw the way the neshamas kevoyos, neshamas the atzilas or afilu b'yeridos and l'biyah. So the Vedas befinas chudi loa, and it's meya b'hem the inem from Mahusa l'kus ha'eksha kula kamei chaloicha. And we saw that all neshamas, that Indian is meya b'hem eikshahem l'mayla ba'atzilas. Omnam yadua she'ish kama madreges b'neshamas. I think we already went into that. And we saw that there's certain neshamas, what they are b'hem is the majority of the neshamas should be yeridosam l'biyah. Misalim bohem b'chinas madreges hu shemitzad shel sham b'atzilas. We saw that the divine providence and the Hashgacha from the Meibishten has it that certain neshamas on their way down, and we put Barichas the whole Moshe, the Alter Rebbe in Perek Beis, where he brings the dogma to this Indian of the embryo, how it's formed from the tipus or av, how it develops even down to the Indian from lower Indian like Siponayim, and the lower aspects of the body would aim for him Gilui, Kokach, of the Nefesh. But nonetheless, they all derive and they come from the.
This is from Rabbi Bolton. He said he will explain to you later.
Huh?
He said he will explain to you later what this is all about, and yeah, he'll see you. See you after.
Okay. We saw that with that the Alter Rebbe is masbir how it is that mitzad echad all neshamas are mamish mushrash, and they all come from atzilas, and yet some of them are not equal to the others. Like he brings at the beginning of Perek, or that whole section in Perek Beis, where we see that there are tremendous differences in neshamas, both in the passage of all generations from the time of the Ovids. And Moshe Rabbeinu went down to the lower generations, and then in each generation itself we see the neshamas that they're bechinas roish, the kol neshamas, and then there's neshamas that they're bechinas raglayim, ve'ikavayim. And with that he's masber that whole point with the famous mashal over there, how even though each neshama is mushash in Olam HaAtzilas, so there's like a development and a passage into a much lower level, even though it's still makusha, b'emes mitzad the very essence, but it's from which it came. It's only that in the Yerida Lamata, and in that form of Ishtaushalas, but even it's not Mamish Ishtaushalas, because it's well known, it's not Mamish Ishtaushalas, but it's a form of Ishtaushalas and Izgalas, then the neshama can be in even from Tzipornayim legabi the shoyresh, even though it's still makusha be'etzem with the shoyresh. That's the whole teichen nifla of that mashal over there, and that's what he's hinting at here. That when the yored lebiyah, then the bechina and the madrege mitzad atzilas is misalim behem, and we saw that they were nitvas begeshem, and we saw that the chayma of the guf is Mailim or Mastir, and we went into some discussion what's the difference between Geshem and Chayma. Amer Eina Shayachim Elamitis Aveda the B'chinas Shechiroila. Ava Reisen Neshama Shahim B'chinas Mahus Elakus Ta'atzilas. Of those Neshamas that they remain even B'yeridosam Lamata, they remain Mahus Elakus Ta'atzilas. In other words, they don't just become shy to Matthias Elikus, no, they remain Mamish Mahus. And we saw that that's what he brings in Tanya over there, the neshamas that they're beginners reish for moichin, what the union of the tip is mushash in the mashal, and it's mamish achelik of the moichin. If amela biyuridas lamata, they remain in the level of the moichin and the rosh. Therefore, they don't alter through the whole series of developments that occurs with the other parts of the embryo and its relationship with the original shayr. And therefore, when they come lamata, then there's meir in them the union of Elikus, how it is be'atzilas, and therefore they're mufshoti me'ageshem. They're completely derived, or completely mufshat, put off, disclosed altogether from anything to do with Gashmiyas. Ki al b'chinas mahus Elikus ein shum davar astir. It's not shy to hide over anything which is mamish mahus, and it's only shy to be mastir, as we pointed out, parichas, on something which is only a ha'ora, and the Indian of a ha'ora is that it's only megala matzias, not mahus. Therefore, of a ha'ora bilvad, there can be a helam Esther, but that which is mahus Elikus be'emes, nothing can really be mailim or mastir. V'avidosam hu mitzad etzem nishmasam. Therefore, we saw that they know and they live, but entirely with the bechina amitius hadeya ha'elyon. We'll soon see about that in more detail. What is the kaviyachol, the view or the opinion, how it is by the Eibishter, the deya ha'elyona, and they the nirgash penavsham bechinas amitius actus Hashem. And therefore, we know that they are tomid b'dvekes amiti, u'b'bechinas bittul b'metzias mamish. Ve'enam shayach l'shum hergish gashmi klal. They can't feel anything to do with Gashmiyas. All they feel is Elikus, because since they're mahus, therefore they feel only Elikus, and they don't feel those inyonim which are only b'derech yesh miyayin or inim from matzias me'elikus. No, they feel only the etzem meaning of mahus Elikus mamish. And we brought down the Targum Yonason ben Uziel, not Targum Onkelos, but Targum Yonason ben Uziel. It's a slight mistake there. The Lashon Tofah should really be Tofyud, in my opinion. After Pasik Kola Sheyedi Ulavavi, and we saw that he teaches Karlo for Lashon destruction or going out altogether, and therefore he teaches Ishtatziye or Ishtatzitze Gushmi, that my Gashmis, my Guf, are completely consumed in knowledge of you. However, we went on to say that the neshamas, the biyah, those are the neshamas that they came into the world, like we saw through the engine of the helem of Atzilas, that Atzilas was misalim from them, even though they're still makusha b'etzem with Atzilas, of a begolui, like in the mashal of the Vlad, the etzem kesher is nelam, even though it's there. Therefore, those neshamas, how they come into biyah, then their avodah is b'pchinas das tachtei. Now we're going to move on now to a discussion in the two dayas, how they are, das elyon and das tachtei. We just mentioned very briefly that the Eibishter's view, or how it is mitzad milmayla lamata, how the Eibishter sees about Kaviyochel looking down, is the deya ha'elyona. And we said that that was the union of Yehuda Ilah, the Amitis union from Bittul, and that's meir in the neshamas that they're mahus ha'atzilas, afilu how they yered matter. But the neshamas the biyah, meaning that they're also from atzilas, but they become nitfas, as we saw in the union of biyah, according to the Moshel over there, of the Valad. And therefore, there it's nelam from them the deya ha'elyoina, and they have only the union from the deya tachtoin, das tachtoin, v'hushalamata yesh ulamayla ayin. They are, according to their awareness and their feeling, then here in the oilam satachtoinim is yesh, and lamayla is ayin. So now that's based on the famous Pasuk, and we'll see a little bit more in detail in the whole Hemshech here from now on. That's based on the famous Pasuk, what Hannah said in her tefillah, in her thanksgiving when Shmuel was born. At the end of her shira, she says, Ki keil deis Hashem, that the Eibush is literally a deity of deoits. That's a Rosh Rabim, and Stam Rosh Rabim Mishnayim, as is Yudua. But the therefore, there's two opinions, or two literally deoits by the Eibush. And as we'll see, it's not that one of them is the real day and the others are a mistake. No, the Eibush Elokus himself is Koilol, both of those deis. Keil deis, he is a divinity, a deity, Keil of both deis. In other words, the Das Elyon and Das Tachtoin are both in Elokus itself. And it's two different ways that Elokus, that the Eibush is Megale himself to the Makabler, or depending on what other type of the Makabler. And remember, to the Nishamas, which are Achilas, from the Russian Eitzel of Korev, that they're Korev to Elokus, Korev to Atzmus Elokus. I feel the way they are, Lamata, and therefore the Deya Elyoina, the way Hashem sees it, that is Meya in them, the way it is, Mitzad Kodesh Baruch Hu, looking at the Nivroim, how they become about in Biyah. The Ilu, the Nivroim, the way they become about in Biyah, the way they look at Elokus, and that's what we call Das Tachtoin, and as far as they're concerned, Lamata Yesh, Ulamayla Ayin. The Ilu, by the Eibush, the Das Elyon is pink fakir. By the Eibush, is Lamayla Yesh, Ulamata Ayin. In other words, that everything Lamata Mi Atzma Saint Save is Ayin. The Ilu Lamata is a pink fakir. That Lamata Yesh, Ulamayla Ayin. So the feast there, we have to understand that what is attached in the word Yesh and what is attached in the word Ayin. Because that's obvious that when the Eibush says Ayin, he doesn't mean what the Nivroim say when they mean Ayin. And when the Eibush says Yesh, he can't possibly mean what the Nivroim mean by Yesh. Because as far as he's concerned, the Yesh as the Nivroim is in ganzen Ayin. So the Gamri lo Shayach B'Klal. We have to understand that when the Eibush says that he is the Yesh, then he means Yeshua Amiti, like we saw when we get to the Rambam. But the Rambam says that everything is Nimtzo Miamitas Imotza, from the emes of being and the emes of foundness, the emes, as they call it in Yiddish, Farankheit, the emes of being there-ness, that is Yesh Ho'amiti, and that is the only really genuine existence. And therefore we call it Yesh Ho'amiti. It's the only thing which can really said to be being. And remember, anything which is not that, anything which is Yoyer Mizeh, Befrat into the Inif and Nivroim, but that's the Inif and Ayin, and Ayin there means absolute nothing. In other words, that Ayin means the absolute negation of any Yesh whatsoever. So when the Eibush says Lamayla Yesh or Lamata Ayin, he means in the most ultimate form of both usages of those words. When he says Yesh, he means Yesh imitas himotza oi, Yesh ha'amiti. And when he says Ayin, he means Ayin be'emes pure shevazeh. Dainu Aiva vo'efet. Ayin shlilus kol hamusik shel yeh. Ve'ilu, when the Yesh says Lamata Yesh or Lamayla Ayin, then it means pink for care. It says that Lamata, that's what it understands to be existence. It understands and it feels the Inif and Yesh, and it says that is existence. Either some other existence, the Eibush Elokus, that Yesh calls that Ayin. Ayin meaning that which is not. In other words, the idea of negation, meaning that it's something which I can't understand. In other words, ayin being the idea of einoi mashani. Ayin meaning eino musag etzel hayed. Aber avade when the yesh lamata, when he says lamata yesh ulamayla ayin, he doesn't mean chas v'sholem to say that ayin be emes. Cholila, that he would mean that. He means to say that Elokus b'vaday the Eibishter is mahave everything, and everything's bottled to the Eibishter. Just I don't have any musik what the Eibishter really is. Yeah, the yesh is not masik Elokus, and therefore he calls it ayin in a sense for eino yedua ve'eino musak. But not that eino be'emes. If he said it was eino be'emes, then one in Islam. Yeah, he means eino lafia musak sheli. Eino meaning shlilus my hasogya. But when the Eibishter, when he says about the yesh ataktin ayin, then he means ayin be'emes, absolute ayin. Eino b'matzias klal. So therefore we see that the two inyonim of ayin v'yesh in dasa elyoina, or yesh mi'ayin in the dasa taktina, are kimat hafuchim gemurim zeh ze in shnei oifania, shnei tztodei hamatbeya. Amam says that we're going to talk about the Inif and the Day Elyoina a little bit more as we go along. He says that the Inif and the Nishomis, that they've come down into Biyah, and they're called Nishomis, the Biyah, even though all Nishomis are Mushish and Atila, and they still have their catch with Atilas. Over the Helam has taken place in Biyah, and they're like the how do you call it, the Tziponaim or the Ikvayim, how do you call it, Ikvayim, Mashiach, the Inif and Ekev and Akvayim, and they say, Lamata Yesh, Lamayla, not Cholila say he's not there, they just said, not Masik Klal what that is. Bahainu, Shanivrahu, Bechinas Metzias Yesh Muragash. Ach, Yisavuseihu mi ayin leyesh. In other words, that they say that the nivra is befinas metzias yesh muragash. In other words, that that's the taina, and that's like the hezbollah of the neshamas the biyah. That they feel the muragash means they feel the, and feeling is a union which is to get to the etzer. What you feel, that's where you are. Yeah, BMS, what you shy to. The mensch feels the inner of the yesh or ilom. That's a simon that's basically what he is shy to, the fire filters. Yeah. Therefore, by him, the inner of the yesh is murgash. He feels that he's aware of the yesh. Yeah. It's only that he will tell you that the coming about of the yesh and its yisavus is bevadai miho ho'ayin. Now when he says that bevadai the yisavus of the yesh is miho ayin, what does he mean? He means zichvan elakus, but he calls it ayin. He says it's yesh minho ayin. Now why does he do that? Just say it's from the Eibishter. And if somebody asks you, you say honestly, that you don't know what the Eibishter really all about is. Though you can say the design of the Zogner Chatchila, that he's yesh mi ayin. That means to indicate that the whole inyan of the Yisavus of the yesh is in a za'oifen, that the yesh admits that the Elokus has been misalim from him, it's hidden from him in some way. That all he can call it is ayin, double built a year. What that indicates, and that's the emerson way of the yesh saying that he feels the yesh murgash etzlo is in yesh. Where did it all come from? It came from the Eibishter of a lagabi murgash of yesh. Then elakus the Eibishter that's ein von ayin. He said bilti musag and bilti dua was mitamid. He's already must be how it is. The whole process of yesh mi ayin. In other words, for the inif and elakus to be mahavad the yesh, elakus had to go into hiding literally. He had to go into Ein van Helem Mia Nivra, because if it would be Begoli by the Nivra, then he wouldn't be a Yesh Muragash. He wouldn't feel the Ein van Yesh, no, he would be bottled by me. Chiyet, he would be pink as everything Shamas Da'atzil. And therefore, in order for him to be a Yesh Muragash, then it had to be a Ein van Ayin Beinoi, or Bein Elakus. Ayin meaning he's not Masik, it's gone into Hillam Mimen. That's the ties of that. He is Masbir. If you ask him that he said that the Yisav is me Ayin le, fine, what does that mean? Sheyoidea sheyesh loy moke, amahava, shehu b'chinas Ayin, b'chinas loy davar. And he says that he knows that he's got a moke. And he's honest enough to say that his yesh is only a yesh murgash. He knows that it's only yesh that he feels it is yesh. And he said, where does he come from? From a mocker. But he said, what is the mocker? What is the source from which you be emes come? And he says, ubchinas ayin. And what does ayin mean? Loi dovar. Loi dovar. Now you've got to be careful. Loi dovar means that it's not anything. Loi dovar. And therefore we have to say that the biur is what that's alternative. It's written in the great Choichim, was put down in the Rabbeinu Sadia Cohen, that he said that the Indian of the Yisav is Dovar Miloi, Dovar Miloi Dovar. That's how he described the Indian Yesh Mi'ayin. He said Dovar Miloi Dovar. Not Dovar Miloi Dovar, no, Dovar Miloi Dovar. How's that take it up? A word tight, Dova means a thing. Dova means a thing. And that thing which we call a thing, a Dovor, that comes from Loidor. It comes from that which is the shlila of anything to do with Dovor. Therefore, some people, they say that is the most correct and proper way to describe Yisav Yesh Mi Ayin. Because when you say Ayin, you get yourself a little, it's a tumult and you have to be misdactic, careful, what does it mean, the word Ayin? Or if you say Dovar, Miloi Dovar, then you say that the whole Dovar comes from a level which is Shoidel Legamidin of the Dovar. So then you know that it's from a Zah level with the Dovar, you can always say about it, Ayin, Eloi. In other words, it's not him alter, of a Vadai. He doesn't mean Loi Dover in the sense it's not there.
If that's a more appropriate phrase, why in all facilities everywhere is not
we'll see as we go along, Favu is. Because we're going to describe the whole Yesh Mi'ayin in a much more detailed way, even at the end of this drush here. And then we'll see why it is that we tend to use the word Ayin Davka. But like Gabi Diyesh, that's a very capable way of describing it. Dova Miloido. In other words, it's a shlila of everything which he represents. But we'll see later on that there's a good reason why we say Yesh Mi Ayin, because we're going to discuss in some length that whole concept of the Ayin. So that's the way it is by these neshamas. In other words, what is that Loi Dover? What is it Loi Dover? So he said Loi Dover, that is Oyer of a Chayes Eloki. It is divine light and life force. What the difference between Oyer and Chayes we've already had on other occasions. Oyer is a Indian Makifi Yoter, that's Indian for Makif, and Chayes is more the Oyer Mislabish. But you have to have two Inyonim in there, as one on in Tanya Perek Mem Ches. But the Alter Rebbe said over there it has to be the Inif and the Era Seivi, but the Era Makiv and then the Era Pnim. Anyway, two Madrigas in Oyer V'chayes, and that Inif and Loi Dova is the Oyer V'chayes Eloki Shemahava Kol Nivro. Every created being, Mi Ayin Le Yesh, from a state, Legabi the Nivro, of absolute Ayin, he has no idea where it comes from, and all of a sudden there's a Yesh. And that's the other implication, that the whole Inif and Yesh Mi'ayin means that there's still no earlier points where you can tie the Yesh up to and say, oh, that's his Mokim, that's his Shurish, No, his whole Moki B'Sheres is Loido, it's the absolute hyper of anything to do with him altogether. He comes about in a name of absolute chidush, from a level which is mi'ayin legamre into a inyan and yesh. And that's the inyan that we say, the famous expression, ki'ilu nira shekan nimsa v'kan boya, like the Gemara says about certain inyanim, when the girl to Tumah B'Rishus Harabim, the Gemara says, kan nimsa kan higher, this is where we found it, this is where it's always been. Yeah. In other words, the yesh just comes about, he doesn't really know where he came from, he just says, here I am, and here I've always been. He's not Masik Klal, the level from which he comes, it's like Ha'ina for Chidush Dover. That's why we call it Machius, because the Ha'ina for Machius of Russian, like finding something that you don't really know where it came from, and that's the Russian Machia. And therefore Machius carries in itself that implication also. So therefore the Rebbe Validei he said, Kol Nivra Me'ayin Le'yesh, Va'ika Hu Helakus, U'Machias HaYesh Hu Botel Betachlis Legabi Ha'elakus. So he said, the Neshamas Ha'ilu also come to a correct conclusion. That they come to the conclusion that if all that is true, then it follows that the Ika is the Eloki, the Kais Eloki, the whole Ika is that. And that means to say, by Ika we mean principle. And the opposite of that is Tafel, that which is the absolute no significance whatsoever. So that means that the Elokus is the Ika, and the Yesh is the Tafel. It has no significance whatsoever, Tafel altogether. And he says that it's really Botel Legamre, or Botel Betachlis Legabi Ho'ela Elokus. So I mean, what's the connection that all of a sudden you say that Da'ika Hu'elakus Va'yeshu Botel Betachlis? What Avizeh kommt da ist, that the Inaf and Yesh Mi'ayin and the Neshamas that they're Befinas Biyah do have an emes of Bittel. This is what we're going to see. It's not Bittel B'Matzius altogether, but they do realize that everything is Botel to Elokus. And if I say that the Yesh came about from a level where they're not Mashi Klau, and it's like a huge nothing in between them and Elokus, and all of a sudden it appears there, and as I even that it's a Chidush and Lo Ba Shum Moke Hayedua, then it follows like he said that what is really the Ika of that Yesh, or that Moke Hayeh ability Yedua. I mean, it's moving that it has absolutely no Matthias, if not that Koyach HaMachadish, I say. So if it's only the Koyach HaMachadish, I say, which makes that Indian a Yesh and a Dover Mechudash, then moving that only the Machadish is the Ike, and that is absolutely Tofel, and really has no Matthias, Klau or Klau. And therefore he goes on to say that it's Botel Betachlis. Tachlis means ultimately in the most highest form. It's Botel Betachlis Legabi Elokus. It's absolutely Botel completely to the Inif and Elokus. The person who understands the Inif and the Yesh Mi'ayin in the Neshamas to Biyah, he's going in the right path. He's saying that if this is a Chiddush which came about Mamish Mi'ayin, the whole Koyach HaMachadish must be the Ikka, because without that it just has no Matthias Klal or Klal. There's no other Madrega for which it to be dependent in Klal. Amamela, therefore its whole Ikka Matthias is only the Inifanella Elokus, and therefore we have to say that it is Botel Betachlis, absolutely Botel Gabi Elokus. V'alidei zeh nasu b'chinas bittul hayeh, and so that there becomes the inyan from bittul hayeh. So the intelligent mind, his eyes jolt out, and he says, "Well, Jafar, you just said that the Ike is the whole inyan from Elokus. Everything is bottled betachlis Elokus. It was if it's bittul yesh. If he gets that far, then he should understand bittul b'meh. He should be bottled completely by Matziusai. And we're going to see that he gets very close to that in his whole Aveda. He was you the same as the gets all that far, that it was tachlis a bittel to Elikus, and he said, oh, there's a bittel ayesh bilvat. It's only a bittel ayesh. I mean, and remember, we see that the difference between bittel b'matzias and bittel ayesh is a delicate difference. It's not, when it comes to making the emes of cheshbon, when it comes to the emes, what you might call havona v'asoge, and what you might call the sachaku, making the cheshbon b'seichel, what's really what, even the neshamas to biyah make the right cheshbon. And they come to the conclusion that it must be bottled b'tachlis. Tachlis means absolute. It must be bottled legamri to Elikus. And I mean, for which there's no bittel ayesh. And if we have to say that this is the amazing Indian, and that goes back to the word murgash. It goes back to the word murgash. In other words, it all depends what you feel. It all depends, as they say in Yiddish, in was lebt man? What do you live? Or to use the expression in Yiddish, was liegt man? What do you really lieg? Lieg means what do you really lay in? Where are you really? Samech Tes Kislev, you guys. What's with you guys? So at least he used a wave of his arm. Samech Tes Kislev. What happened with Samech Tes Kislev? Thousands of things happened. What on earth do you want? The mice with Sarah Dasus, or what was his name, came in to see the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, and the Alter Rebbe said that you got to ask. Yeah, what did he tell him? What's hat him gesagt? He said you got to. What's the expression? We said, what did he tell him? No, I forgot the expression. Ayecha, oh that's right. Yeah. Where are you? The Eivishter comes to Adam in Gan Eden after the faith, and he says to him, Ayecha, where are you? So the Sarah Dosis said that he came to the Eivishter, asked him, where are you? So he said, don't tell me what Rashi held. He was a big London, you know the whole story. He said, don't tell me that Rashi said it was just no liftoach itobah. It was not to open up a conversation and not to shock him at the beginning. He said, I gave him a little peta. He said, that's what Rashi said. I want to hear what you say, he said to the Alter Rebbe. What is your stig? So the Alter Rebbe said to him, there could be that a man lives for 62 years, and he just had his 62nd birthday. I didn't imagine. Yeah. He just had his 62nd birthday, and the Alter Rebbe said it could be a man lives 62 years. All of a sudden the Eivshter says to him, he could ask, Ayecho, the Eivshter wants to know, where are you? Eifo ata. What does that mean? Ayecho, Eifo ata. That means, B'meh ata munach. What are you in? In what kochst du sag, in what you're in. And in Tiferet, that means, what do you feel? What is your argosha? Hoe liegst du mit der Hergisch von der Nishon? The means. Eifo ata, Ayecho. Yeah. So the Nishamas, the Biyah, they say, I hear Elikus, and I want Elikus, it's very hard to feel the whole time Elikus, In the middle of a Shabbos Tikkun davening, I feel Elikus. You know the whole Maaseh. You guys don't know the Maaseh. There was one of the Hasidim. Who was he? I forget names. Anyway, one of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim. So they came, some of the Chassidim came to the Alter Rebbe and they said that they don't understand. How does the Maaseh go? I've just forgotten how it began. They don't understand a passage in Tanya or something. So the Alter Rebbe says you have to go over and see Bill Rilling. I forget who it was. One of the big Chassidim. You have to go and see him, and he'll help you. He'll reveal to you what it is. So they thought, well, you know, he's a very Chassidish Yid, so the Alter Rebbe said, you got to go there. So they come over to him, and he says, you know, what are you guys doing here? You know, what do you want? So they said, the Alter Rebbe told us that we could ask you, what is the union of, let's say, Yechudi Loa or something. I've forgotten exactly what was the Lashon in Tan. They want to know what it is. He says, me? The Alter Rebbe said to me, he said, what can I possibly help you with the Zochan in Yom? He said, oh, yours. No, we're not going to go until you tell me. The Alter Rebbe said to you. So he starts saying, he says, ooh. He said, now he knows. Now he knows. He said the other Shabbos he was davening, it got late in the afternoon or something, and when he said Shema Yisrael, he finished Birchas Krishma, he came to Shema Yisrael, and he felt in the spitz of his finger, Bittul B'Metzi, he felt Yechudi Eloah in the spitz of his small finger, he felt Yechudi Eloah. He said, that's tremendous. He said, that's probably what the Alter Rebbe meant. He said, I actually felt Yechudi Eloah in my spitz finger. So I said, wow. Everybody was tremendously pleased. They had a big, for bringing us, they left very pleased. So in other words, he felt Yechudi Eloah, the Bittul B'Metzias in his spitz finger. So it was the man. So I mean, I'm giving you away the whole fucking don't need to verbring anymore, you to Kislev, or they're giving you the guns, you to Kislev, time mark. So that's what the Yidli felt, that Spitzfinger, Yechudi. And at the time, normally speaking, Nivroim, the Biyah, finally had to feel Yechudi Eloah. He felt Yechudi Eloah after a lot of work and everything, he felt a bit Yechudi Eloah. But normally speaking, Haragoshe, well, that's what's covered. It depends what you feel. Argosh. And Argosh is Da. Derech. Therefore it's called Das, Elin and Das. And Das Tata.
Yesh?
Huh?
The whole Ian of Hagosha comes from a Yesh. It's your feeling of something.
Yeah, that's very good. That's a very good question. The whole Hagosha is coming from the Yesh. In other words, if you want a Yesh, you wouldn't feel anything. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that the Eivishter wants Dafke that we should feel. Dafke will as feel. But it depends how you feel. If first of all you put down the Hanocha, that I need to feel, so I have to feel, and then you take everything that you feel according to your I, then Einoch feeling is a yes. You follow? But if you say, no, why did the Eivishter give me to feel? Because that's a way to become sensitive to things which are l'mayla miseichel. And I can't really take something, but through the sensitivity of the nefesh, I can be aware of them. You follow? And you don't say, first of all, I want to feel, but you cling on to certain things in the only way that you can do it, which is called hergish. And this is an undermass. That's the inif and das. That's the inif and nimus adas. And therefore, das is it's what down in the the das can cholila be nechas in Inyan HaMatzias, or das can be nechas being in Elikus. You follow? That this person, he knows that everything is bottled telekus. He knows that everything is batatas. He just can't feel it. He feels somehow or another. Ultimately, he feels this world. So b'midah musayemes, he's not really to blame for that, and it surely can do it, because that's the way he came down into the world. That the Eivishter was malim. He's like one of those developments of the embryo, in the middle. He's not really the Rosh U'Moichin or even the Leiv. He's sort of somewhere down in the feet or the Akiv or the Tziponayim. Okay, as he doesn't. It's hard for him to be aware. Let's put it that way. Let's not use the word margish. Let's say aware. It's hard for him to be aware and to actually take into himself. But Pinimi is the bittul. He knows that the bittul is there, but he can't actually live it. He can't feel it. He feels so for such the union of the oilam and of the yesh. Where are we? Validei zeh nasbechin bittul hayeh. Dahainu shetachlis ritzveinai v'cheptzei b'chol davar hu b'chinas elikus boy. He said, what does it mean, bitla yesh? He said that he would like to be. It all depends on what you really want. Oh, now here's the other side of the coin. If he can't really be aware of it and he just feels Eilam Hazeh, and the Chushar Gosha by him is in Eilam Hazeh, so he's a writer. And we should help me, that he feels even bittel Yehuda Tatoa is nicht Sekonim. That's not the Emes Deya. So he said, no. He said, Cheftoi v'Rateinoi. He really would like to be how it really should be. Cheftoi v'Rateinoi. Yeah. When he looks at anything, when he sees anything, all he's concerned about is the Elokus Shabai. In other words, he's not just his rotten, because then you could say, well, it's an obliged thing. No, Cheftoi. Cheftoi means pnimis, his whole pnimis is he's looking for Elokus. And even though Shayesh Tifus Mochimetle, Adi has got a place by him. He's not completely lost his whole Matthias. He still feels his Matthias. He said there's hope for this guy. Because even though he feels, he can't just stop feeling Matthias. See, what does it mean, bittul b'matzias? Bittul b'matzias is you only feel the mocker, you only feel the avery, you don't feel it up. And that's the famous lesson. The Elokus b'pshitas b'matzias b'schadj. Elokus b'pshitas, I'm sorry. Elokus b'pshitas b'matzias b'schadj. But that's Atzilas. They feel Elokus absolutely sinfully, and the Holy Nifana is Chalchit. But he feels the other way around. He feels that the Matthias of the world is Pshita. That's obvious to him. And Elokus is Einifan for Nishchalchit. He said, however, even though that's basically almost like another thing we can be him. He's drawn by the edge. After Pikain, he said he's devoted to it in such a way that his whole chayfus, he doesn't want the yesh just in its own right. In other words, he's drawn to the yesh, and what he understands is the yesh, but he doesn't really want it. Here we have a person who is fighting an amateur battle. His whole life is like, as it were, a battle, not giving in to what is, what you might call his natural or his instinctive, whatever you like to call it, tendency, but to fight it and to be in a state of milchama. And that's the difference between his kafia and his habt. That's the difference. And that's the mila that there is in his kafia. There's a mila in his kafia like his habt. His kafia, the touch of the mentions kaseda in a milchama, what does it depend? The pain is a mess. The whole of his life he's fighting a struggle. He's fighting a war. That's what the Rebbe said. It's a amazing description here. The Rebbe says that Ein Retzina be'ayesh metaratchas. Kim bela kusha boy. He knows that Elokus is in there, but he feels the Matthias of the thing. But he's fighting to get past that into the Elokus. And the neshama d'atzilas, he just feels the Elokus, and he laughs at the other part of it. Tfisa smoking actually. Doesn't even know it. Keep away all the secrets you to Kislev. Another famous mass with the Alter Rebbe with the Badichva. We can't go into all the mass. But anyway, suffice it to say, the Nishamas Datzilas, they see pink for care. They see the Elokus, and they just see there's some sort of strange thing there, but people get all Google-eyed about, they call it Matthias. And as far as they're concerned, it's a door show. So Kimat ain't b'zeh Mamoshes Club. Doesn't have any place. Because they're Ike in Elokus, they're Mitzad Argosha Shabeha. They just feel Elokus, that's all they're aware of. If I say it's the different gradations of Elikus, Pekoli, the whole of their life. And when they're done, is one form of gradation, when they're learning, it's another form of gradation. They live another type of life altogether. But the neshama, the biyah, he is looking, he's anxious to get through the blockade. He wants to get through and get to the Elikus Shaboy. He knows that there's Elikus in there, but he just can't get at it because he's not aware of it. And there's a certain hell of Esther, and he wants it, and he's longing for it, and he goes for it, but he doesn't quite, grasp the emes Elikus in a way that'll just cause him to become completely bottled. So therefore he says, Ki'im be'Elikus shaboy, k'mo shemekabu chayusay mi'a'er v'chayes Elikisha b'Michael. So he said, for example, he knows that he's mekabu v'chayes Elikisha b'Michael. When he eats the food, he knows that it's not so much the food, it's that the aims to place divine koichos in that Michael, and that's what gives him his chayus, and that's what makes him live. And on the contrary, that's the whole ikar of why he has to eat in order to gain the chayus eliki from the Michael. In b'shas he eats, that's what he would really want. If you asked him, what would you really want? He said, want only to feel the elikus in the Michael. He feels a certain inyan in the Gashmias Adora. He's nitwas a little bit in the Matthias Adazah. And therefore he feels the Maila of the Geshem and the physical, but he's looking and searching and longing for the Elikus. And therefore, it's not that he's looking and longing for that Kashmir. He just feels it, kilo b'derech. It's almost, he has no burden, but he feels the Kashmir. And that's my lemomastir, the Gavi the Amitius Apitro. As far as his kavana is concerned, he would want to, he said, V'chein b'chol dovar, yesh etzloi kavana elakis, v'ena misave elayesh mitzad atzmei. Everything he does, he has a kavana elakis. He tries to have a certain divine, purpose in what he does. So each one according to his darga, it's meir by him. Yeah, some is meir more, some is meir less, but at least he has a kavana, a general purpose in dealing with the Gashmis, that he wants the elikus shabai. He doesn't want to be involved in the Gashmis mitzad atzmai. And ever enu misaveh. He doesn't feel the inyan of a lust and a taiva for the Gashmi, but he has a kavana elakis. In other words, not like we saw earlier about the Neshama Dachilas, like we saw earlier about the Neshama Dachilas, that Ko in the honor of Agashmi, Hey Melakus. He B'Shas Maisa feels only, and he sees only Elikus. And everything is by him, just different versions of the divine. I hear this person feels the Gashmi, but he has a kavana. He's got a certain, if you're mechavan to something, it means that you and that thing are not mamish one thing. You're mechavan to it. Therefore, he's got a kavana elakis, and that takes away the inyan from taiva. And even on the contrary, we can say that kol retzeinei v'cheftzei she'oyer chayzeli yoyebe gilui. It's well known that our emes chassidus yid, it's well known, the cloud, that our emes chassidus yid doesn't want to just take the oyer v'chayz elaki and put it in his own pocket. He doesn't just want oyer v'chayz elaki for ziyah. He wants oyer v'chayz elaki that it should be nikah in the world. In other words, he wants that the world should be noticeable. L'chol boy ha'elam, that it's a world of elikus. And therefore he wants that the oyer v'chayas elaki should come down and be meir b'goloi b'teichat oilam. And how's he going to do it? How's he going to be able to do that? Al yidei what he is mishtadl with all of his power to show elikus in what he's doing. It's not elikus. It's he has a kavon. And that causes a certain awareness of elikus in other yidden around him and other people's. Like when you see an yid and you feel in certain things that so you pay attention, people notice. In other words, it's svert ayinim like the Gemara says, Masechta Yuma, right near the end of the Masechta. The Gemara says over there that you'll have to, as Hashem Alakecha, means that you have to cause the Eibish's name to be loved. In other words, you have to, in everything you do, you have to show a certain kavanah or certain care about the Eibush. Many people notice that there's such a thing as the Shem of the Eibush, and they praise it. And there was put over there, the Rav Shesha, I think it was, when he bought Basa in the Shuk, he bought from the Atlis. The Atlis means that the guy who took care of the flesh, that he would never take the wrapped up parcel and put it in his box until he paid the money. Only after he paid the money, then would he take it and put it. He wouldn't even lift it up off the table, only after he paid the money. He said in order that the guy behind the counter shouldn't have a second of a worry that, you know, when the other guy is selling it, you give it to somebody, he puts it in his basket, there's after a minute there's a flash in your mind, well, maybe he's just going on. There's a flash in, so that flash in the mind on the part of the seller, said the Gemara, that's a Gabi somebody like Rav Sheshes, that's a Chilul Hashem. That's the Gemara. That's the Indian, Hey Shem Shamayim Misahev Al Yodecha. That's the Gemara. People have to love the Eibush because of you. In other words, he wants Gilel Akuspa. Boy. And then says, this is the famous pasuk which is brought in the Alter Rebbe brings it over there in Pasha Mishpatim in Torah, like we pointed out the other night. There's a kosu v'zorati espeis Yisrael zera odom zera behemo, and I will sow the house of the Yidden zera odom v'zera behemo. I will sow them to be literally the seed of man and the seed of animal. Now, that's one of these very fascinating cases of where Chassidus touches a pasuk a little bit slightly different than the pasuk Hemshech or Mashmoyes other pasuk. And that is a pasuk about the Geula. It's a very fascinating pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, I know it. And suppose where Yirmi is talking about Yirmiyahu, and I was talking about the Geula and what's going to be, that Eibush is going to, do all the things. And then he says that V'zorati is Beis Yisrael. I'll pour out my Gilel Akus everywhere. I've forgotten exactly the Lashon. V'zorati is Beis Yisrael Zera Odom. And then he writes Zera Behema the Kafaka. In other words, that the simple title of the pasuk could be taken to mean that Zera Odom is one thing and Zera Behema is another thing in the pasuk. Dahai, no? What he means to say is that I'm going to sow everything for the Yidden Beis Yisrael, that they will come to Selakus, and Zera Behema, also the Behemoths, the Behemoths themselves, they'll also come to realize, because like Yeshaya knows, he says, Gor Zavim Im Kevish, that there'll be a kevis, I'm sorry, that all the animals will dwell together because they'll change and they'll come to realize that a kus were chuliver v'chuli. I say the hemshech of the pasuk is mashma like that. Comes along Siddur, and Siddur takes us slightly different, runs the two words together. And it says that the Eibush is Zorati is Beis Yisrael, even before the Geula. I will sow the house of Yidden, Zera Odom, Zera Behema. In other words, that in Beis Yisrael there are two inyanim: the Zera Odom and Zera Behema. And what was a Zera Odom? Zera Odom is those who are literally the seed of man. In other words, they have big understanding; they're higher than the animals. And then there's a level in the Shomas of Yidden, Zorati. I sold it. Listen, this is what made the Yidden, that they're not Zera Odom, but they're Zera Behema. In other words, that they're just like, compared to the Zera Odom, they're just behemoths. They say. After you read this passage, and after you read over there in Torah, then you say, Halavai Zah Behema fi the Alter Rebbe maps it out over there. So that matter way it's put over here. Halavai, we could be Zah Behema. In other words, that Zera Odom means those are the Nishamis, that they have high and emerson knowledge, just like a Odom compared to a Behema. He has emerson Yeah, and emes knowledge. And then there are certain neshamas that they're like behemoths, that they're not able to gain emes knowledge. In other words, once again, what is the hebdo from Adam bis behemoth? Das. Emes das. Emes haragosha, emes awareness. Emma the zero Adam, what they feel and they're aware, only of the in and out. Elikus, k'moshe b'yemen. Adam adamele elyon. I will compare him to the Eibishter. And Adam van Loshen, begematria ma. What is the inyan van ma ubitel telekus atzilus. Well, atzilus and ma is the same as the Drea Kiyadua in Pasuk Eliyahu. Either the inyan van neshama is there a behemoth, or that means people what they know about Elikus and they understand the Eibishter. Oh, they're not really makusha to him, be'emes, that they should lose the whole years. And I mean, like Abidos, other neshamas, they're called behemoth. Well, not cholila that they're behemoth be be'emes. Therefore, it's written that Zorati basis well, Zer Adam Zer behemoth. Even though in the Pasuk Lav Tafki, it doesn't simple pshat. It's an interesting case of what you call Achshudish Kabbalah in how to learn the pshat. He said that's the Indian. V'zeshikosu v'zorati as beis Yisrael zer adam zer abeh. Hey Mosheim beis bechinas nishamis ha now. Or that's nishamis datzilas and nishamis de'elamis bria yitira v'yah ashiyah. He said the zer adam heina nishamis hagavoyos. The nishamas da'atilas hanal, which we mentioned there above, and they're fully aware the whole time only of Elikus, and the whole uniformity is by Zeya Akashia, how can it be? You know, they're bottled by Machia. Dibedera Klau Hein nishamas da'atilas, Shenikra Odom. The Indian for Natilas of a cloud called Odom. Sheish lehem das chazok by Elikus, that they have very strong knowledge. Das chazok by Elikus, leida ulaharagish amitias ha Elikus, that they come to know and to understand and to feel. And if we put the two words together, leida ulaharagish amitias Elikus, ba'ayna b'chinas Yeshua Amiti, the Indian of the embassy, Indian of being, Yeshua Amiti, in Atzilus is the only aware that there's one and only Matthias. The Eishukla Kamei Kalecha Shiva, and everything is like every him of no existence whatsoever. I feel the Spheres there, Atzilus. Kama bia. The Odom Adamele Elien, that's the other type. Odom Adamele Elien. I will compare it to the Most High. Hainu Kimoi Hadeyahu Elieno Hamitias. Kain Hu Nirgashpe Nirgash Benaf Shom. Just like the Eibishter's real opinion is when the Eibishter looks down and he says Lamaila Yeshu Lamata. Absolute ayin, or that's the way they are aware in their souls, that's the way they experience the whole in and of the Eilam. And the Eilam is Beklau. They say, Yeshu Amiti and Lamata ayin ba'amiti is amusi. Shaheim bedugma shel maila mami. They are bedugma shel maila. In other words, as a Yid, whenever he acts or whenever he does something, then that is bedugma to the way it is, la maila. You know the famous master with the Alter Rebbe and what the Frierdiker Rebbe said about the Alter Rebbe and a little barrage. I'll try to do it, you guys. I say the Alter Rebbe used to wear his tefillin the whole day, Esther. The Alter Rebbe used to go on tefillin the whole day. So I feel frightig. It's a bit like pillar, the whole thing. I feel frightig noch mittig, he still had his tefillin on his piece. So nonetheless, it's written that all of a sudden the Alter Rebbe on Friday afternoon would sort of, he'd start falling asleep, he'd start dremeling, and it was a shot about the tefillin, a lot of dremel in tefillin, and he had to take over his tefillin and the whole mazel. He would start to dremel. So they found out that that's the time, Lamaila, when there's like a preparation for Shabbos in the Sfiras HaLienes, and that's called Dor Mitra de Zohar. It's called the dormitory of Zohar. Actually, Zohar goes to sleep at that particular moment in order to prepare for Shabbos, in order to be bottled by Matthias, in order to gain such a high oil. It's a whole big beer in Chassidus about it. So, the Alter Rebbe says, Bill Parich, at that time in the afternoon, on Friday, Bill Parich used to go and lay down. He used to go and put his legs weg op bed, gap naar Drummel. That was the time. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, what's the difference between the Alter Rebbe and the Reb Hillel? He said, the Alter Rebbe, had to Kislev, but because he was bedug Michel, Maila. The way it is in Elam Atzilas, that's how it happened to him. And even to the point that it just happened, Belishu who it kaven with it. Belishu you'll tell to. And then, Reb Hillel was there, a grace of man, since there of a Rebbe he wasn't. And therefore he had to go and lay down. That's Kedos Kein Avekleg. Alter Rebbe, it's for sich allein. Sie haben mich Atschmei, es hat sich geschlafen. Es hat sich geschlafen mit Atschmei. You know the famous Diopitz, yeah. The Alter Rebbe, he was bedug Michel, Bill Meila. But Meila, wie bald, that was the in La Meila. Das hat sich geschlafen und sich allein. Wie ich laharig bezel, wen kann machen.
The Rebbe took a nap that time, so he learned a marshmallow that was a good time to schlaf. The Rebbe schlafed at that time, so he said, I'll schlaf also.
Yeah,